We're 1 week away from what you worked so hard for.
It's NAIA football with Dannelly and Donley.
And don't you let a moment go without thinking about what's there for you to reach out and grasp.
Welcome into the Victory Sports Network. This is VSN's NAIA Football with Dannelly and Donley, and I am your host, Jason Dannelly. Thank you very much for joining us for the start of the 2024 NAIA football season. I can safely tell you I'm very happy to be at this point in the year because we've got football just around the corner. For each and every one of you that has been checking out the website, you know that our conference previews are up. If you didn't know that, head over to victorysportsnetwork.com. Check out the conference previews. Our top 97 list will be coming out of our rating of all the teams, as well as the NAIA 99 just a little bit later on this month. But without further ado, let's get into today's program. I first want to introduce my co-host for the show. His name is Pat Donley. Pat, as always, appreciate you joining me, and we got a fun one today. I
will tell you, Jason, full disclosure, this is the least amount of show prep I've ever had to do. For today's interview. This is an easy one. Football's right around the corner, man.
Yeah, I am so looking forward to finally seeing live football and following the NAIA again this year. Well, let's introduce our special guest for the day. Some of you may know him as the head football coach at the University of St. Francis. Some of you may know him as the all-time winningest NAIA football coach. Other people on this program in particular probably know him as Dad. Pat Donley, Kevin Donley, joining us for today's show. Coach Donley, thank you very much for joining us and taking a little time to talk with us about NAIA football today.
My pleasure.
It's probably a tough one to get this interview going. I don't know how much you really want to talk to Pat, but at least I'm here to kind of shoulder the load a little bit, maybe.
Well, now that he's not coaching, I don't get to talk to him too much, so I'm kind of looking forward to it.
Yeah. That's not a good answer. I'm your salesman. I'm in there all the time selling his stuff.
This is very true. So I know, Pat, you obviously, I'll throw it at you, Pat. You know, you didn't do any show prep. So what do we need to know about this guy that's on the screen?
It's right off the top of my head. Well, this guy is obviously the winningest coach in NAIA history. Top 5 all time in college football wins, is the winningest active coach currently in college football. That's pretty big deal. And Dad, the cool thing about your career, obviously I know it better than anyone, but you started out as an NAIA guy as a player, back in the 60s and 70s as a player. Then you started your coaching career at Anderson College at the time, now Anderson University, which is a Division III school, but was an NAIA school back in those days. You're a head coach at 26 years old. If you just want to kind of kick things off of your playing career in the NAIA, I know you played a national championship game as a player back against Westminster and Joe Fusco and those guys back in those days, and kind of kick us off there, then going into your coaching career in the NAIA at 26 years old.
Well, it's kind of been a strange run of events. When I went to college, it was Vietnam time. It was crazy. Riots and crazy things going, protests all the time. So I was right in the middle of all that. So I had a lot of Vietnam vets on my team. That's back in the day when you had 35 guys on the team, and sometimes you went both ways. And I think I had one bar across my helmet, and the old helmets with the straps inside, suspension
helmets. Yeah.
But yeah, I've been an NAIA guy and played at Anderson 4 years. Got to play in the very first NAIA national title game out in Newcastle, Pennsylvania, against Joe Fusco and Westminster. Didn't turn out too well, but ended up dropping that one like 21-16, I think. So it was a good game. Played in the snow, of course, when you play in Westminster back in December, So anyway, was there. I was at Anderson 4 years and got it turned around. First year, I think we were 500, and then had 3 straight winning seasons, 2 conference titles. And my last year there actually made it back into the NAIA playoffs. And from there I went on to Georgetown College in Kentucky. My first year there was 1982, and rebuilt the program. I was the seventh coach in 7 years when I went to Georgetown. It was kind of in shambles. So it took a while to get it rebuilt. I don't think we had a winning season until year 5. President that hired me left after the first year, and the president was there after year 4. We were 4 and 6. Brought me in on a Monday morning after the season and fired me. It was about 10 o'clock in the morning, and I had a group of faculty members went and protested his office, fellows back in Vietnam times, that they thought the kids were getting better representatives of the college and so forth. So I got fired at 10 o'clock and hired back at 3 o'clock and continued on. Got it flipped finally in year 5 or 6, started having winning seasons, and then won quite a few conference titles there, and eventually won the first NAIA title 1991.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Dad. Was it 87, I think, was the first playoff team at Georgetown. Lost to Westminster.
Yep.
Back in their heyday. And I think, that experience, you could see the growth. I was a little kid at the time. You could see it, where the program was going. Like Dad said, there was just no stability in the Georgetown college football program, which is so crazy to think now of the program's history back in, the 80s. It was unstable. It was kind of all over the place. And you came in and really, solidified things there and build a tradition, build a winning culture, by the mid 80s to the late 80s, and obviously won the national championship in 91. Talk about that year. It was an incredible year. I mean, I was an 11-year-old kid, ball boy on the sideline every game, seeing all these points being scored. So, Jason, this is kind of the backstory of some things. Dad's an old run and shoot guy, from a schematic standpoint. That's a term that's been around for a long time in college football. But Georgetown College in 1991 set all kinds of records of yards, rushing touchdowns, and scoring for that era. Just incredible. And you see now where the game has evolved to schematically. I mean, you can trace things back to that era and, spreading people out and throwing the football and the balance with the run game as well. But, Dad is instrumental in a lot of those things back in that, late 80s to early 90s period of, offenses not being two backs and a fullback and a tight end and running off tackle. It kind of evolved into more of a quarterback centric, passing game, offense. And talk about that 91 team, Dad. It was unbelievable. As a kid, you scored 63 points a game. This is incredible.
Yeah, we scored a bunch of them. I can't take all the credit for it. A good buddy of mine by the name of Red Fall was the head coach at Franklin College for years and years. He was an old run and shoot guy. He never ran the ball. Just wrote every down. And we were running triple option. And so he was out, retired for a year. He called me and said, "You got something for me to do? I'm going crazy, sitting at home." So I said, "Yeah, come on down." He'd come down on Thursdays and Fridays and game day and go home and do the same thing every week. But we could have married triple option football with the run and shoot. And boy, that's tough to stop. It was like it was a league rule. Everybody was playing the same defense because they didn't know what to do with it. 4-4 everywhere. So, people load up the box, you throw it over them and kick it outside. All the motion and things that came off of it were very deceptive and blended extremely well with triple option football. So, we were rushing for a couple 300 a game and doing the same in the air. So, yeah, we most points in the 20th century. The last team to score more was in the 1800s, the old Harvard team, and that I think the rules were back then. You make it, take it. You score. So, yeah, that was really a fun year. We didn't have very many close games. We had one against Frosty Westering, another great old NAIA guy. Played them in the championship that year and ended up 28-20. It was a great football game. And what a gentleman he was. I really enjoyed getting to know him and had a lot of respect for him and was an honor to play against him.
Yeah, he was a tremendous coach. I had the opportunity to interview him a couple times post-career, and just an impactful guy on, hundreds, thousands of college football players, but you've had that too, Coach. And, I haven't been on the inside of your program, in the last couple years. And when I always think of like a Frosty Westring, he always had the, make it a great day, and that kind of his theme. Has there been a general theme or whatever that you have followed with your teams year after year, something that, it kind of all comes back to that one thing with your programs?
Your co-host can answer that. He's heard it a million times. My very first year as a head football coach was at Anderson. They had no office space for me. I mean, I made the big bucks. I think I had a dorm room, a meal ticket, the Super Stelco card. And my office was in an intramural storage cage. And you had to, you had the key to get in the room. Then you had to know the padlock code to get in. Then you had to have volleyballs and softballs and golf balls hit you in the head and everything. But that was it. And at age 26, I got to find a way to get this program turned around. It's been suffering there for a while. And I got the job because the head coach decided he was going to be AD. So they threw it in my lap because they could get me cheap. That was the only thing. So I remember I had a kid walk in about March, Division I transfer running back from Purdue. I don't think he had a GPA. He did play. But back then, if you got a pulse rate, you're admitted, son. Come on. So lo and behold, camp starts and he shows up. And this guy's ripped, man. I mean, he's a tremendous athlete. He's got great speed. Saw game film of him playing in some Big Ten games and so forth. But he just struggles in classroom. So anyway, he ends up at our camp. So we go through 2 weeks of 2 days. And he comes into my intramural cage. We're at the game week now, so you post the depth chart. Who's one, who's two. And he comes into my office and slams the door, and I thought he was going to punch me out, and said, I don't get it. You got Mike as a starting tailback, and I'm bigger, and I'm stronger, and I'm faster. And he said, I just don't get it. So I'm sitting there in the intramural cage with golf ball buckets. You have the big ones, and then you have the smaller ones. Well, there's a small one there that was full, and the big one had a couple of them in there. And I said, well, Vic, that big basket over there, that's you. He said, you're crazy, man. What are you talking about? And I said, it has all this potential, but there's only a couple of golf balls in it. That little bucket over there is Mike. He's 5'8". He's 150 pounds. I can beat him in the 40, but he never makes a mistake. He never makes an excuse. He's coachable, and he's always got your back. I picked up your playbook a half a dozen times in camp. You come out late every day, horsing around the training room. With the balls out of your hand, you refuse to play, and I got to get you a tour guide because you don't know what you're doing. So anyway, that resonated with him. Mikey shared time with him. Eventually, he caught up about mid-season and fared to be pretty good. He didn't make it in the classroom, but I think he's a police officer now and did okay. He learned from the experience, but we've been trying to fill buckets for the last 47, 48 years now.
That's excellent, Coach. I like that. I definitely like that. I have a similar system that I use with employees and bank accounts. And when you're a new employee, your bank account's at zero, and you continue to make deposits in there, and occasionally you can make a withdrawal, and we'll be fine. But if you make a pretty big withdrawal and you go negative, then you're going to get foreclosed on or kicked out, or as I like to tell them, you're done working for me at that point. So I like that. It's definitely a good one. So we've talked a lot about like being back at Anderson. I kind of want you to fast forward, but then also back up with the history that you've had and the career that you've had as a coach. Wins and losses aside, what if you could get on in a time machine and go back and talk to 26-year-old Kevin Donley with his first head coaching job today? What would you tell him? What advice would you give him? What would you say to him to either make this maybe a little smoother, or just to kind of say, hey, things might be getting a little tough, but don't worry, good things are to come.
You're a 26-year-old kid. I wanted to end up in Northeast Indiana, but I just landed 90 miles southeast of what my goal was. So I ended up here. I didn't know anything about St. Francis College at that time. didn't know much about Fort Wayne. But, I have no regrets. What I know now, what I would tell a 26-year-old is focus more on the process than the final product. Final product will take care of itself. So you gotta teach kids to be responsible, take care of their business, to be high effort kids. They got to be men of their word. They got to have high character. I've won 3 national championships at 2 different schools. And all 3 of those were not always the greatest players that I've ever coached. I've had teams that were more talented. But the 3 national championship teams had such cohesiveness and camaraderie and love for each other. And it was a heck of a lot more we than me. You get youngsters today and look at me and it's all about me and what are you going to give me? And I even had somebody ask me about NIL money this year. And I said, you're barking up the wrong tree, baby. That's not going to happen here. Though I don't believe it. First of all, I think it's terrible for college football. But anyway, I've had a great career, and I would tell them just focus on the task at hand. You got to have goals. You go out to win every ball game. I'm a terrible loser. But you better focus on the process of improving not only your game, but everything you do. Because, I had somebody ask me, I think one of the championship games, just how good is your team? And I said, well, ask me in about 20 years and I'll tell you. And I've been out now about 8 years. Or how many years has it been, Pat? Since 16 championship. And 8 years. And, I've got guys that are owning their own business, that are CFOs of major companies and doctors. And, I'm so proud of what these guys do years later. And every one of them come back and they talk about still filling their bucket. So that means a whole lot to me.
Yeah, just kind of looking at things, obviously the bulk of your 300 plus wins in your career has been at USF. Let's talk about, starting the program from scratch. 1997, you get a phone call from a little lady in Northeast Indiana, place in Fort Wayne that want to start football. This history is tremendous. We could be here probably for hours talking about it. But if you give us like the Cliff Notes version of that experience and that phone call, I think it's tremendous.
Before you start, I'm just going based off memory here, and I haven't thought of this name in at least 10 years. Was it Sister Elise Chris?
That's her.
Hey!
Got lunch with her Tuesday.
I can't remember when my wife's birthday is, but I can remember that.
Great lady. It didn't take me long. I fell in love with her and wanted to work for her. Tremendous person, and she did a great job. She's still here on campus. She's not president any longer. She's retired, but she's a great lady. I had never heard tell of St. Francis College, and didn't know anybody really in Fort Wayne except Terry Hebner. And Terry called me in, I think, January of 97. And he said, I know you've always wanted to start your own college football program, and I know you're a Catholic guy. And he said, there's this little school in my hometown, St. Francis College, and they're getting ready to start football. And I think you ought to take a look at it. I said, well, I appreciate it, Terry. And of course, he ended up head coach in Miami and later on at Indiana University before he passed away with cancer in 2006. But he worked my camps every summer in Georgetown. And his son, Drew, and my daughter, Megan, I think they were planning their wedding when they were in kindergarten. I didn't know if you knew that, Pat, but you had a Hebner family there. So anyway, they didn't make computers when I went to college. So Terry ended up sending my resume to St. Francis. And a couple of weeks after I talked to Terry, I get a call from a 28-year-old athletic director who's also a resident director about coming out here in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and starting collegiate football. So I did. And went into a boardroom, and I don't know, there were 20 people in this committee and talking about football and so forth. And Sister Elise was not in there at that time. And when I left that day and got back on the plane to go home, I thought, okay, these folks have no idea what they're getting into here. They wanted to start football primarily to increase male enrollment. So the student body was about 95% female. I said, well, that's a good place to start football. Even linemen get a shot to get a date. So that's a good place to go. So anyway, they called me back, and I declined the job. I just didn't think that it was going to be solid. And then the next day I get a call from the president. She said, I hear you don't want to be our football coach. And I thought you wanted to start a program from the ground floor. And I said, well, I do. But I just don't have any idea. And if you don't do this right, you're going to have a disaster. She said, well, all right. You come back next week and tell us what we need to do. I said, okay. So I outlined it, worked a couple days, laid things out, 4-year plan. So I came back, and she was in the second meeting. We went through everything and laid it out. And at the end of the meeting, she says, okay, we'll do it your way. You're hired. So Irish luck that my first day on the job here was St. Paddy's Day in 1997. My first football office was an old condemned pre-World War II honors building. There were rodents flying and crawling around. It was quite a trip. But that's where we started. And Terry told me, if you get this job, you're going to find that it's the only college football in town. It is a football community. He said, you're going to find Notre Dame, IU, Purdue fans all over the place. But because you're the only football in that town, you're going to have fans everywhere. It didn't take long. I was there maybe a month, and I had a gentleman walk in my office by the name of Tom Yale. He was a developer out on the east side of Fort Wayne. And he walked in and he looked around and said, brother, you need help. Yep. I said, we don't have a field. We don't have a helmet. We don't have a football. We don't have anything. We're starting this thing for the fall of 98. So we had a spring to recruit. Of course, you know, if you start in April recruiting, you're not getting any 4 and 5 star kids there, right? So I think we brought in 47 guys in the fall of 97. Half of them, I don't think, played high school football. I remember Tom ended up buying some helmets and shoulder pads for us so we could have spring practice with that 47. I know guys, we had a big U-Haul trailer full of equipment. That was also the locker room that first spring. We had a whole vacant lot first spring game, and the parents bring the lawn chairs out and watch. And we were so terrible. I mean, we were bad. We had a guy could catch it. Nobody'd throw it, so it didn't matter. And I think if we'd have played the Nuns, they'd have beat us a couple touchdowns. So that was the start. And then we had a full recruiting year. We got a kid who could throw it. And we got some good football players in the fall of 98, but we're all freshmen. So first game, we go up Chicago, play St. Francis. This is the trip now.
St. X.
St. X, that's right.
Before Coach Femis was there.
Before Coach Fem. And we go up there, and the bus gets lost. We end up in Old Mexico or somewhere, and bus drivers couldn't speak English. So we get to the hotel about 1 o'clock in the morning with a noon kickoff Chicago time the next day. And we go out, and we're running around shoot football. We put 56 on the first game. They had no idea how to line up with it. So, a bunch of freshman kids are hooping and hollering, jumping up and down, and the Nuns are going crazy back on campus. We're going to win the national title the first year of college football. Hold on, kids. We go. Well, after, I think, 7 straight losses, we ended up 2-8 that first year. So we went from we ended up dead last, worst in the league that first year. And then fall of 99, we had time to start really building the thing and starting to teach the kids how to fill their bucket and things that were important. So we met 3 days a week for about a half hour a day, and really started formulating a plan of what that meant. And kids really wanted to win. It was real important to them. And lo and behold, that year too, the spring practice the next year, we started to resemble college football team. I mean, we got a chance. So we got another recruiting class in the fall of 99. Wasn't bad. Got a couple tough kids, defensive kids. So anyway, we go out and we went from worst to first, 2-8 to 8-2. Actually made it into the playoffs and had to go play my old Georgetown team first round. And at least we got in it. It kicked our butt pretty good, but it was a strange thing going back. And that was my home for 11 years. And it's where the kids grew up and so forth. So that was like, going and playing your sister. But anyway, that was the start of it all. And then after that 99 year, I think we won 8 straight conference titles. And 5 of those years were 8 undefeated regular season games. And made it to the national title game 3 years in a row, didn't win it. But I think we've had 6 Final Fours and 5, I don't remember.
I think we've got, it's more like 8 or 10 Final Fours and then 6 national championships.
Yeah. And then finally, then 16 and 17, we won the back-to-back. Had the great quarterback with Nick Ferrer, great receiver with Sefco, and a whole host of kids that were just class guys, and now they're doctors, business owners, and successful people in their lives. And we won with a lot of class kids that knew what it took to be a good team.
Yeah, Coach, I remember a lot of those teams, especially through the mid-2000s. Unfortunately, I was present for all 3 of the national championship losses, so it was probably me.
On the daggone intro tape, every time you turn around, you kick my butt twice, 3 times.
I'm going to redo it this year. I just haven't had time to remake the intro here, but... No, I think it was me because I was at the 3 that you lost, but I wasn't at the 2 that you won. So I guess if you make it back, I can't go to the national title game.
I was talking to Kalen DeBoer a couple of weeks ago, and I told him, you owe me, buddy. I handed you your first national championship, 2 special team errors. We're punting to put you in the hole with a couple of minutes to go in the game, and our punter snapped the ball over our punter's head. They got the ball inside the 10 for the score to win the game. So I said, you owe me, buddy. So we got a couple of autographed footballs for our auction.
Hey, knowing Kalen, those are probably already on the way. So you would definitely.
The fundraiser's tomorrow, so they're there.
Yeah.
So yeah, you think about it. Obviously, Dad's been the most, from a win standpoint, the largest win total of NAIA history, but the national championship losses are to Kalen DeBoer and Mike Van Diest. Those 2 great teams. So, just a tremendous run. And those are some great teams, those mid-2000s. I mean, I think arguably, Dad, you talk about some of the most talented teams were those teams, and going head-to-head with great programs and coaches. The NAIA was so strong in the mid-2000s. And that was kind of your heyday, Jason, when you were covering things.
Yeah. Mike did a great job coaching the defense, but I think the best talented team that I've seen was Kalen's 2018. We went out there and played in South Dakota in December. I think it was like 12 degrees with 40-mile-an-hour winds. And we had punts go backwards.
Yep.
The longest and shortest punts in USF history.
Yeah.
In the same game.
Yeah, I can safely say I was at that game. I was on, walking around beforehand on the sideline, and I spent the rest of the game in the press box, or the makeshift press box that they had at that time, because that was not a fun experience.
I think that's where you were.
Yeah, and talk about the world's biggest backfire. I knew I was going to be indoors. I didn't pack the extra layers, and I get there and it wasn't finished. I go, oh, this is great. That's fantastic. I think my water bottle froze in about 5 minutes too, so it was a cold one.
It was, yeah. There's been plenty of those through time and through the last 20 some years at USF and throughout your history, Coach. I mean, it's been great, to have you on and talk about history, but let's maybe change gears a little bit. I mean, this is the first show going into the 2024 season. I just completed writing all the conference preseason profiles, looking at all of the information that I got in from the teams, and you've got a nice team and a good deal of starters returning this year to try to improve on last year. Talk a little bit about this year's team.
We're going to be very improved. We'll find out quickly. We open up at Indiana Wesleyan. We've got some kids back. COVID hit us hard, not playing that fall of 2020 and then playing a short season and to turn around and playing another one. It was tough. We went through some struggles here at the university at that time financially, had some cuts and that sort of thing. So it was a tough time. But I felt like I had to try to fight through it and get this thing back on track, or I'd be a hypocrite for what I've been preaching and filling all those buckets for all those years. So I think we're finally making headway. Had a good spring ball. Got some, I'm not in favor of the NIL or the transfer portal. However, transfer portal probably has helped us more than it's hurt us. We lost a couple, but we've had more come in that are pretty good players. So got a transfer receiver from Indiana State who I expect to be pretty good. We had a transfer quarterback a year ago from Indiana University who was solid and did a nice job. And then we got another one coming in from Wayne State, Michigan, who was a 2-year starter. There's got 2 years left. And then we've got a good kid coming back as a junior, Garrett Yoon, who's the all-time leading yardage guy in the state of Indiana high school football. So we've got a good core. I think we're stout up front. Defensively, we've got a good number of returning. So, yeah, we're excited about the prospects of what lies ahead this fall.
What has it been like the last couple years? Because for as long as I knew you, and I'll back up before I ask my question. I want to first thank you, Coach, for everything that you did for my career in covering NAIA football, because you'll probably recall this. The first year that I was really covering things, I did a fall camp tour and came to USF, had an opportunity to meet with you, and for me, it was a guy that had won national championships, was kind of this legendary coach. You could have blown me off and just said, whatever. But you sat and you talked to me for a couple hours while I was in town, talked to me about the program, and got to know you a little bit. And I've always been thankful for that and your openness to, put up with me, quite frankly. and
times together. I probably got you in trouble that night too, didn't I?
Yeah. Well, it was more the next morning that I was in trouble because I did not. Yeah, we won't go down that road. But as you kind of, and I'm trying to remember where I was going with this, because I was just so thankful for you being there and being one of the guys to say, hey, this VSN thing, this NAIA football guy, he's good. And when you get around NAIA football coaches and you kind of get that stamp of approval from, people like yourself and Bill Cronin and the Mike Van Diest and the Kalen DeBoers of the day, it helped me grow. It helped the business grow, and it helped us, push things forward. And I'm definitely happy, to be back in this format, covering, your program and your team here. So, first and foremost, just kind of want to, thank you for that opportunity. With your program, going and looking into how things are shaping up for this fall with the changes in college football, what's been the biggest change kind of in the last 20 years that you look at and you wish, dang it, I wish we still had it that way, or I wish we still had this, because it would make the kids today, make the game better. Is there anything out there lingering that you can think of that has changed in the past year that maybe you'd like to see go back?
Well, I think kids are more entitled today. They have a lot of things given to them and they expect it. I look at teams going back when we started this thing 25 years ago. Kids were concerned about doing well for each other, and it was really never about them as much as it is now. There's so much focus on me, and I keep preaching more we than me, because that helps the team grow together. There's a brotherhood that's formed, and you play better than you are sometimes. Fill in that bucket, go back to that. That's the biggest thing I see. Again, going back to when I started in 1973, my gosh, there's been a whole evolution of attitude and commitment. And NAIA football is the true version of what college football is supposed to be. And it is the best classroom experience. I'm sure there's faculty people that disagree with me, but it's the best classroom experience an 18 to 22-year-old male can have. The ups and downs, handling the great times together, dealing with the tough times together, and responding in a positive manner. I think I kind of feel sorry for the guys in Division I. They make a lot more money than they do, but dealing with all the individualism that they have to deal with, and who's going to offer the best financial gig. I think we're missing so much. The most valuable part one of the most valuable parts, I want to hang myself here, of a college education is that experience. It's life in a microcosm. And it's just something special for a young man to have to experience, to get to experience.
You kind of got me back on to where I was going with my original question. So you've had a lot of special moments, over the last 20 years. And since I've known you, the guy that's in the other, well, I guess that corner of the screen right now, when I met you, he was on staff. He was on staff for a long time. You've gone several years now without having that father-son duo. What has that coaching dynamic been like for you to not have Pat there on the sidelines and everything with you the way that it was for so many years there?
Well, he's obviously my son. I kind of like him. I got spoiled. He was a great football coach. He was a hard worker, a heck of a lot smarter than I am, and obviously it was a great loss. We had a great staff back in, 15, 16, 17, 18. We had Wagner and Miller and Didier and Donley, and I kind of just got to sit and watch and enjoy things. They were great football coaches, and, I don't have any of them now. So you got to start again. Get up off the ground, smile, and work your butt off, and develop coaches, and get them in a comfort zone where they can do their best job. And I've always said, I coach coaches, the coaches coach the players. But when you lose all four great ones there at one time, boy, that's difficult. So anyway.
So, Dad, I'm not going to spill the beans on you. You had a birthday this month. Or you can look at your Wikipedia and know your age. You're 73 years old, right? What makes you get up every morning and continue to do this? Because it's remarkable.
Well, I love the game. I love the strategical part of the game. I love the kids. I like to see them grow. These kids today, man, they have a lot on their plate. They go through a lot of struggles. I have them lined up in my office all the time. And when you see those that get through it, succeed, and continue on with life, it's very rewarding. It's like, it's proof you can make a difference if you just show some grit and try to get the kids that you work with every day to develop that grit. I love football. I love coaches, the kids. Love the place where I work. And kind of, as I say, I kind of fell in love with those nuns about 25 years ago. So it's been home for me.
Coach, before we wrap things up here, because we've gotten a little bit over our time that we like to keep our interviews at, I do have to give you the opportunity. I know Pat's here. The number one fan of this podcast is your daughter, Megan. So if you'd like to say hi to her right now, go ahead and.
Megan, girl, that's my little baby.
And that's the other thing I've loved about covering you, Coach, is from the moment that I met you, it was like when I was there, I just became part of the family. Hey, go with Pat and do this. Hey, Megan is at this game, or she's coming to this game. Go say hi to her. So I certainly have appreciated you kind of being a pseudo family, because as Pat and I have said, somewhere along our lineage, we're probably related. Somebody just decided to start spelling it differently.
That's probably, and that could happen with Irishmen in a pub in Ireland, that's for sure.
It's a small island over there in Northwest America. So
it all started as Donley, and then I think my family, if I remember, sometime between when we came to the States and moved from like Vermont to Southern Illinois, we added an A. And so then that made us different. And then I think we added an N and an L because we just wanted to be extra, I guess. I don't know.
Matt knows more about our family tree than I, but I think we dropped an O somewhere in there.
Well, yeah, the folks didn't speak. We spoke Gaelic, so the census was all goofy, the different spellings and all that kind of stuff. So, no, Dad.
I've had a blessed life, guys. I've met a lot of great people in this. I looked through all those coaches, you've been talking about, and it's been a wonderful life. I've enjoyed it, and to have shared 20 years of it with my son has been very special.
This has been great, Coach. I thank you for spending the time with us here today. Best of luck this upcoming season. I know I'm going to be definitely watching, seeing how you guys do as things get going and started off with the season. Thank you again for joining us, Coach.
Guys, thank you.
All right, he's Kevin Donley. That's Pat Donley. I'm Jason Dannelly. This has been NAIA Football with Dannelly and Donley. We'll check you out